Hey y'all, welcome to the channel. Today we're checking out the Fish and Chips Wars, UK versus Iceland.
I know Iceland's so cool.
I've never been to Iceland.
Like, I'm looking for someone to eat for dinner, and every other result on Google Maps is fish and chips.
Mobile fish and chips. Fish and chips. I want it.
I'll just do 2 orders of fish and chips.
So I'm in Iceland, and I just found out that the UK went to war with Iceland several times between the 50s and the 70s over one thing: fish and chips.
What?
I'm not kidding. There were 3 conflicts between the 50s and the 70s over fish that they used for fish and chips.
Let's have some fish and chips.
Wow.
Fish and chips. This is real. I want to tell you the story. Buckle up.
I didn't know fish and chips was even a thing in Iceland. I thought they ate like maybe boiled fish or raw fish with like some really strange fish broth soup or something. And of course, I think, fish and chips is a British thing. And there were wars about it in the 20th century? Okay.
Yeah. What kind of fish is it? It's cod.
Would you like some fish and chips?
Iceland. It is, above all, the home of the vital fishing industry.
NATO's banner flies proudly.
The Icelanders unilaterally extended their fishing limit to 12 miles.
Yes, I know. I have done fish wars in multiple different
seen that one.
permutations, from India, Sri Lanka, prawn wars, to US, Canada fish wars. Well, here's another installment of how fish make it really hard to draw borders because they live in the ocean, and so countries fight over them.
Okay.
To understand why the UK would go to war with Iceland, you have to understand fish and chips.
Okay.
Fish and chips are a giant deal in the UK. It's like, I need to get those stats up. 1/4 of Britons eat fish and chips once per week.
Whoa.
Thing I think we ought to take a look at is an English pub.
Pubs all around the country serve millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of meals of fish and chips every year.
yes.
It is an institution. It is a part of the cultural fabric.
My mouth is watering.
However, Britain doesn't have enough fish to upkeep this demand for fish and chips. So where
Really?
do they turn to?
Iceland.
So the fish that they use for fish and chips is called cod.
I've heard of it. Yes, I've eaten it. It's
Cod
delicious.
is a delicious, buttery, creamy fish.
Yes.
But do you know who else loves cod? Iceland. In fact, you might argue that Iceland loves cod more than any other country on Earth.
If you need proof of how much Iceland loves cod, you just got to go into one of these grocery stores, and you will see it right on the shelves.
Oh, wow.
Okay,
It's
who
not
wants
even
to try
frozen.
some dried, aged cod?
So yeah,
Oh, no.
Iceland loves cod. In fact, they used to have cod on their coat of arms. Like, it is
Wow.
a part of their national identity.
Dang.
And to understand why they love cod so much, you just need to look at the oceans around this island.
Are they full of cod?
These waters surrounding Iceland here in the North Atlantic
they're
are
cold.
some of the most well-stocked waters on Earth with fish, especially cod. This country has relied for centuries and continues to rely deeply on fish. I've been driving all around this country, deep into the West Fjords and all around every region of this country. Everywhere I go, I see fish and fishermen and fishing infrastructure. The lifeblood of this country of Iceland is fish.
Makes
So you
sense.
can see where this is going.
It's an
British
island.
love their fish and chips, which comes from cod. Iceland loves their fish generally, especially their cod. And for centuries, this hasn't been a problem. Iceland has been able to fish their abundant waters, and Britain was also able to come into these waters and fish them for themselves. But
Okay.
after World War II, that started to change.
That dang old World War II, stirring things up again.
Hey there. Like, crack them open, put them on a pan?
Yep, you can do that too.
You guys, I bought eggs from a bird. I don't really know what it is.
Oh.
But doing okay?
Why'd you? They're real.
Where did you get those?
Nope.
We are eating these eggs.
Yeah, I don't know.
We're
I would
going
try
to eat
it.
these eggs.
Man, it feels so good to be on the road again. After a year and a half home. So good.
Total war, patterned by the Nazis for all Europe, comes at last to Germany.
You have to understand that after World War II, the entire world changed. Suddenly, you have these superpowers, especially the United States, calling the shots on what a new economic world order was going to look like. And that came with a lot of trade. Suddenly, if you had an abundance of some resource, you could ship it somewhere else and make money for your country. So Iceland started to participate more and more in the global fish trade. They
Okay.
had so much fish in their waters outside of their country, and they were like, we should just start like shipping this
a lot
abundance
of
to
money to
other
make.
people and making money for our country.
Yeah.
But when they started to go out into their waters to fish more and more, what they saw was a bunch of British fishermen out in their waters who had been fishing there for years.
Well, hello there, chaps.
And the British were like, well, you don't technically have any claim over this water. It's technically international waters. You've never claimed it, so we can fish here. And Iceland was like, you're right. Let's change that. Iceland's territorial waters, where they exclusively could fish, only extended 4 nautical miles off their coast. Not very much. The British were like, cool, like we don't need to go into your little 4-mile zone. So Iceland, this tiny country, was like, we're going to extend it to 12 miles. The British were now technically fishing inside of Icelandic waters. But Britain, one of the most powerful countries in the world, was like, cool, there's this island nation of 170,000 people with no military, and they've just declared that their boundary goes 12 miles into the ocean. Cool, and they totally ignored it.
Try and stop me.
So it's the 1950s, Britain is fishing their fishing ships cod off the coast of Iceland. And Iceland has no navy. They have no way of really enforcing this besides their Coast Guard. So they send their Coast Guard out to detain the fishermen, the British fishermen. And this works for like 2 seconds until the British sends in their like legit navy to scare off the Coast Guard.
Really?
And thus begins the Cod Wars.
A country can't just declare that the waters are theirs, right? There has to be some kind of agreement with other countries or the United Nations or something like that, I would imagine. Right?
So it's now like the 1950s, and the Icelandic Coast Guard is holding their ground. They're showing up to the ocean whenever they see British ships, and they are confronting the Royal Navy. They are not backing down, even though they are a tiny country with no firepower and no leverage. They are not backing down because they freaking love cod.
Delicious.
I'm like, dude, Iceland punching above your weight here. This is amazing. And guess
Yeah.
what? It works. The Royal Navy backs down, and Britain finally recognizes this 12 nautical mile boundary that Iceland unilaterally declared for themselves. The first Cod War is over.
Okay. So he did say they unilaterally declared it. So they just declared it without any official agreement from other countries. And it worked. That's amazing. When he first said that the British Navy was coming to, into the fold of this whole story, I thought surely they're not gonna fire on the Iceland Coast Guard. That's not British. That's more of a, well, I don't want to name the country, but North Korean thing or Russian thing, Chinese thing.
The first cod war is over.
Yes.
And now we are entering the West Fjords. Hold on, look at a map.
Fjords. West
We're
Fjords
in this
region.
RV, and I'm not really sure it's gonna handle these gravel roads, but we will quickly find out if it does handle these gravel roads. I'm just excited to see Iceland at some of its most rugged. Here we go.
That's beautiful.
So now we are in Cod Peace. Cod Peace lasts for about 10 years, but Britain is getting tired
God.
of their expensive cod for their fish and chips.
I thought he meant the area he was in was Cod Peace, but he's talking about peace between the wars. But my brain, before it got to that, I was thinking of a cod piece like the Batman suit.
But Britain is getting tired of their expensive cod for their fish and chips. They want more cod, and Iceland is the place to get it. So they come back. So British ships are now showing up into the Iceland zone, leaving the waters depleted. Iceland will not have this. They freaking love their cod. They are not going to let Britain steal it. So they decide to up the ante, and they declare a 50 nautical mile boundary. They're like, all of this water is now ours. Back off, Britain.
That's
This
a bit
really
much.
pissed off Britain, and not just Britain, but also West Germany and Denmark, because now Iceland's water expansion was now getting into the waters of these other countries who had fisheries in this area. But Iceland didn't care. They're like, listen, we love cod. This is like the best fishing in all of the Atlantic. We are not backing down, even though we have no army and we only have 170,000 people.
You gotta back it up.
To Cod Wars number 2.
This is crazy. I had no idea this went on.
1972, again without international legal backing, they increased this to 50 miles.
The UK took this one to court first,
Without
and international
international backing.
arbitration ruled in favor of the UK. They're like, dude, Iceland, you can't just extend your waters 50 nautical miles into the ocean. You can't do that. And guess
That's
what
electrical.
Iceland said?
Yeah. Well, just watch me.
And they just
Wow.
totally ignored it. So even though
What?
the most powerful countries in the world, plus some of their friends, and an international court ruled against Iceland, Iceland dug in their heels and was like, I'm not fucking leaving! Britain is getting tired of this. They're like, come on, guys. We need to fish these waters. We need our fish and chips. Like, you have no standing here. We're done. So they send in their navy once again. The British Navy decides to escalate things a little bit and start ramming the Icelandic Coast Guard boats.
Continued the skirmish, which ended in yet another.
See, somebody could die from all that.
No more warning shots, no more soft core standoffs. We are now ramming each other. This leads to a series of standoffs in the North Atlantic between Icelandic Coast Guard and the Royal Navy, the most powerful navy on Earth.
Iceland.
These fish and chips people, they love their fish and chips.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's delicious.
So, does Iceland back down in the Second Cod War and say, okay, fine, the international court ruled against us. Britain and West Germany and Denmark don't like this. We're just going to chill out. No, they didn't. They kept it up. And in fact, they decided to pull out their one major piece of leverage in all of this, which was their alliance with NATO.
NATO land is composed of 14 different nations with a combined army.
UK's in NATO too, though, right?
Easily my favorite part about Iceland is that you can be driving through some random mountain pass, like we've been doing, at midnight, and you can wander upon waterfall after waterfall after waterfall that are just there. They're just there. Just look at this waterfall that I'm
Oh my
looking
god,
at.
that is gorgeous.
It is insane.
That's epic.
Iceland was a member of NATO.
NATO was founded April
said
4,
was.
1949 by 12 nations of widely different languages and customs. During its 6 years, NATO has well proved its power for peace.
And they occupied a fairly important role because of where they exist. They exist right here in the North Atlantic, a very strategic place. So Iceland decides to pull out their wild card, the thing that they've been holding on to this whole time, which is, we will withdraw from NATO if you do not recognize our 50 nautical mile boundary of the ocean. If Iceland withdraws from NATO because of something the British did, the US is going to be pissed at Britain.
Tell that bitch to be cool.
Why?
Say, bitch, be cool. Be cool. Say, bitch, be cool. Tell that fucking bitch to chill. Be cool.
Hey, NATO.
So Britain was like, okay, fine, you win. 50 miles, you got it.
Gosh darn it, I give up. It's yours, you can have it.
Cod Wars Episode 2 is over.
Really?
Iceland wins again.
Why?
So this is now the second time.
Why is Iceland so important to NATO? He said its position, but I don't understand why. In 1949, Iceland was a founding member of NATO and was the sole member that did not have a standing army, joining NATO on the condition that it would not be expected to establish one. However, its strategic geographical position in the Atlantic made it an invaluable member. But why? I guess because it's close to Russia, or it's between the US and Russia, maybe? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not getting a straight answer from anyone. No one can explain it.
Iceland wins again. So this is now the second time that Iceland, this tiny country with no military, has bested one of the most powerful countries on earth, all because of fish. They freaking love fish here. Don't mess with Iceland's fish. But this isn't over. It's the 1970s, and we are about to commence Cod War Episode 3, Return of the Cod.
Officially made it to the westernmost point of Europe. I think that's right. I mean, we tried to say we were in the westernmost point of Europe 2 years ago in this moment.
Just a 30-minute drive outside of downtown Sintra is the westernmost point of continental Europe.
And yeah, that obviously wasn't, I mean, it was continental Europe. So now here we are again, the westernmost point of Europe right here.
Okay.
I don't know where we are, but we're really freaking west. We've been driving for 4 hours on dirt roads to get to this cliff on this very tip of Iceland in the West Fjords, and we're here to see puffins. What are we here to see, son?
Oh.
Look, puffins?
Yes.
Those are strange birds. I would drive 4 hours to see them. Although I've seen them in a zoo before, an aquarium. And I didn't have to drive 4 hours.
Are just right here. They were just right under our nose the whole time. Look at this.
Aww. Cute.
I mean, I guess I'd seen puffins on Instagram or something, but I had no idea just how striking these birds are. Photographing these birds today has been it's really helped me appreciate them.
They're really unique. Maybe you could fry them up and have puffin and chips. Maybe that's the answer.
Episode 3 is basically a repeat of the last 2 episodes. The British move into these waters to get their little fish because they want fish and chips. More ramming, tons more ramming, more standoffs. Britain is not okay with this tiny country pushing them around. I mean, it's Britain. They're used to literally taking over any country they want in the whole world. And they're being told what to do by this little tiny island nation. They're not liking it. What I love about Iceland is that they don't just dig in their heels and not concede. They always push it a little bit further. So this time they're like, we don't just want 50 nautical miles. We want 200 nautical miles off our coast for exclusive fishing. Britain
That's ridiculous.
No, this is not good. How are we getting bested every time we try to fish? This got so bad that the UK and Iceland actually broke off diplomatic relations. They were really angry at each other until the Americans come in and they're like, dude, stop it. NATO, the Cold War, nuclear weapons. Stop crying over your fish and chips. We have bigger priorities.
Chill out, dickwad.
And so they backed down and they recognized the 200 nautical mile claim that Iceland was asserting. Turns out, a couple years later, the UN developed the United Nations Convention and Law of the Sea, a big document that actually codifies that every country gets 200 nautical miles of exclusive economic activity. But Iceland
Wow.
was already thinking in these terms. They're like the exclusive economic zone hipsters. Like, they were far ahead of everyone else.
There are always sheep on the side of the road here, including loads of baby sheep that are
Oh my
so
God,
precious.
they're so adorable.
It always seems like they're about to dart out in front of the side of the road, giving us loads of anxiety, but they're very cute.
They're very cute. Aww. Where are their parents?
Izzy's never seen reindeer before, so she's taking in the reindeer.
I've never seen a reindeer in person. Oh. Wow. Pretty cool.
Pretty special, huh?
So, what did the Cod Wars teach us? Well, as an international relations guy, I'm sort of like, this doesn't square up with a lot of the theories that I learned in school.
Yeah.
In school, we learned that when countries trade with each other and when they're bound by alliances, they tend to cooperate better than ever. In this case, what you see is countries that are bound to each other through alliance and through trade who are not cooperating because they are bound to each other by trade and institutions.
Well
in fact,
said.
one of the major bargaining chips in the war was the fact that Iceland was going to withdraw from NATO. They used the institution as leverage.
We that Icelandic law will be upheld, and I have on that score nothing more to say.
All of that is to say, this is a super unique case of a tiny country using its leverage to basically make one of the most powerful countries in the world concede, and it totally worked.
Wow.
This is me. All right? I'm not a fucking athlete. This is my fucking way. This is how I...
But the bigger lesson for me is, and the thing I'm going to take away is, don't f with Iceland when it comes to fish.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good
See you
policy.
later.
See you, man. Wow, another great video by Johnny Harris. I had no idea about this. No idea about the Cod Wars. But, like, so 200 miles, that means that Britain has 200 miles off its coast to fish exclusively, right? That they own. Is that 200 miles? How far is Britain from Iceland? Oh, 846 miles. 735 nautical miles. That's further than I thought. Damn, Iceland. I mean, I guess it's one of their few resources or one of their few sources of food. I can only think that maybe the whole cod issue pushed them to the point of no other choice. I guess. Where else are cod found? Okay, yeah. They're not. I mean, that's the only place you can get cod. And it's kind of the perfect fish for that, fish and chips. Amazing. I'm shocked that it escalated to such a degree. It's just wild. I'm also shocked that I never heard of this before. I guess because the US was not really involved until the end, and that's why. You know, I will give it to Britain, though, because they just rammed the Iceland Coast Guard boats. They could have used their guns. They could have gotten really serious about it, but they were logical. The UK was like, we're not going to go crazy. We're not going to kill you guys. Have your fish. We'll find it somewhere else. We'll be fine. We don't want to kill you over it. Meanwhile, I feel like if Iceland had the Royal Navy, they would have been killing people. Seems like. If you're going to declare 200 miles, they're kind of asking for some confrontation. So I want to congratulate the UK for having some restraint. Maybe the rest of us can learn from that. Anyway, really interesting video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all later. Next time. Or wait, I'll see y'all later. No, I'll see y'all next time. Later.